Right now, someone out there is getting ready to collaborate on a new podcast or a YouTube series or a product launch, and they're about to make the exact mistake that has sunk shows, ruined friendships, and cost lots of creators thousands and thousands of dollars. And if you're thinking, oh, that won't happen to me, we're all on the same page, well, I'm here to say you're probably not. So stay with me for the next few minutes because what I'm about to share has blown up more creator relationships than bad audio ever has. Here we go. Hi there, welcome back to Legit Podcast Pro. I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, and today we are talking about collaborations and why they're so often misunderstood, misused, mislabeled, and misidentified. And yes, I'm going to tell you the story of a podcast that literally fell apart because everyone thought they had a collaboration. But what they really had was a producer and talent relationship wrapped in the wrong contract and nomenclature. And it was a mess. It still is a mess that's going on as we speak. So let's get something straight. Not every project involving more than one person is supposed to be a collaboration. Creators love to slap collab on anything. Couple of friends co-hosting a show, it's a collab. A producer hiring talent, collab. A brand deal, collab. Someone editing audio for $40 an episode, collab. No. A true collaboration means co-ownership. It means shared control, shared risk, and shared reward. If that's not what you're doing or want to do, then you're not in a collaboration. You're in some kind of a service engagement, or it's a talent deal with a producer or a profit participation agreement. And calling the wrong relationship a collaboration is exactly how shows wind up blown up, destroyed, and costing everybody a lot of money and headaches. And speaking of blowing up, let me give you that real world example. And honestly, this kind of thing happens far too often. A while back, a group of producers developed a show concept, branding, financing, everything. They brought in a charismatic talent to host the show. Fine so far. But instead of structuring it as what it really was, which was a producer engaging the talent under an engagement agreement where there was a net profit participation as the compensation, what they did was they used something called a collaboration agreement. And on paper, everyone was suddenly a partner in the venture. And the problem was they weren't actually meant to be partners. The producers took all the risk. They spent the money. They built the sets, set up the studio, all that. And the talent basically sat down in front of a microphone and spoke. And yeah, they leveraged a few relationships and things, but ultimately the talent was really just performing. So when the talent decided that they wanted more control, more veto power, more authority, and they wanted to have more control over the money, they pointed to the collaboration agreement and said, see, I'm a partner. This is just as much mine as it is yours. When the producers didn't cave, the talent basically refused to continue performing, and that triggered months and months of back and forth, demands, accusations and recriminations, lawyers getting involved, production grinding to a complete standstill, sponsors getting angry because episodes that were promised weren't being delivered, and revenue collapsed. The show never actually reached profitability, and ultimately the producers lost a ton of money, and the money they expected to earn never came to pass. Now, the whole thing is probably headed to arbitration or litigation, maybe for years. And the show, it's gone. It's fizzled out, never recovered, all because they used the wrong kind of agreement. Now, here's your diagnostic question in these scenarios. Is this truly a collaboration, or is it really a service relationship that just feels friendly? If one party is doing the financing, carrying the risk, developing the concept, hiring the team, running the production, handling the deliverables, well, then you're not actually collaborators. You're a producer, and the talent is just the talent. And I don't mean that to minimize the role of talent, but it's just a producer-talent relationship where the talent is getting paid with a percentage participation in the profits, not a percentage ownership of the project. That is a completely different structure, and it needs the right kind of agreement. So here's something that creators don't hear often enough. It's a basic explanation. A collaboration is technically a kind of partnership, legally, functionally, and the consequences are such. And partnerships come with some very real obligations and risks. A partnership basically is if two or more people carry on a business together, usually with the intent to make a profit. The law will see them as partners by default, even if they never filed anything or put anything in writing. And that means that you get the whole partnership package, joint and several liability. You are legally responsible for what your partner does in connection with the business. If they do something reckless, unlawful, negligent, or stupid, you, the other partner, could still be on the hook. There are tax complexities with partnership. You have to do a tax return, a K-1 form, allocations, tracking contributions and distributions. And creators who don't want this situation can find themselves in hot water. So, operational complexity is another component. Decision making, authority, banking, approvals, intellectual property, ownership, distribution, administration, contributions of intellectual property, of financial contributions, all of those. And what about profit distributions and exit strategies? All of this needs to be defined, or what you get is chaos when things don't go smoothly. A partnership is also hard to terminate cleanly. Ending the relationship isn't just a you keep your mic and I'll keep my stuff and we'll go our separate ways. No, that doesn't work that way. You are legally intertwined and it gets very sticky very easily. Without a written agreement, you default into the worst possible version of a partnership, the default that the state law sets up, with only a few rules, no protections, no exit plan, and maximum liability. And here's another thing about that joint several liability is that if one of you has deep pockets, that is, you have money and resources, and the other doesn't, well, who do you think the lawyers are going to sue when it comes time to go looking at who caused things and how to recover, right? They go after the deep pocket. And joint and several means that both or all the partners are equal, not equally, they are responsible for the whole amount of the liability. And then they get to duke it out among themselves after that other liability has been resolved. This is why so many creator relationships collapse. Now, another kind of entity is the joint venture. This is like a temporary partnership with sort of guardrails on it. A JV is a limited purpose partnership, usually for a single project or product. It's great for something like a limited series or short run co-production, and it still does carry those partnership risks. And it still requires, actually, even more so, requires a written contract to articulate the scope and the relationship of things. Now, a co-production is when two or more entities are working together specifically in a production environment. This is more formal. The companies are combining their resources, each is bringing certain value to the table, and it's good for bigger shows, brand integrations, network level stuff, and so on. But it also brings along complex approval rights and revenue splits, and ownership of intellectual property gets tricky, so there's a lot of that. All right, so here's another situation that I keep seeing in my practice. A ton of collaboration agreements that are out there are actually self-contradictory. They'll say things like, this is a collaboration, right? The heading is collaboration agreement. But then later on in the document, it'll say, this is not a partnership or joint venture, right? And the parties don't intend to be bound that way. Well, if the relationship is meant to be a collaboration, then you want it to function like a partnership or joint venture. That's what holds the parties accountable. And if it isn't supposed to be that, then you shouldn't be calling it a collaboration agreement at all. All that does is confuse things. And when you end up having to put things to a fact finder, whether that's a judge or a jury or an arbitrator or mediator, it's going to make things harder for everybody. This is what gives the terms meaning, the accountability that comes with those terms being used properly. So, a no partnership clause in a true collaboration defeats the purpose, and it creates legal weirdness when things go south. So, why does this happen? Well, I will tell you. If the answer is, well, the AI just threw that in there, then you've got bigger problems. Please don't use AIs that way. When lawyers draft contracts, even ones that start from boilerplate, we make deliberate, conscious, thoughtful decisions about whether these clauses belong and what doesn't belong, how the clauses interact, what the risks are, and how do we protect the client in the real world scenarios. AI models can mimic real legal language, but they're not ready to be trusted with real human situations that have legal consequences. A contract that looks like a contract isn't the same thing as a contract that actually works and does the job it was meant to do. All right. So, when is a true collaboration appropriate? When does it make sense? Well, a real collaboration is appropriate when everyone is contributing meaningfully. Everyone is sharing ownership. Everyone is sharing control and bringing real value to the equation. Not to say anybody in a employer employee or a producer talent relationship doesn't bring value, but it's different levels of things. So if everyone is sharing on the upside and the downside, then that is a collaboration and that's okay. Great. If that's you, perfect. Now, put a real agreement in place and make it happen. Now, is this changing how you think about teaming up with other creators? It's okay to have a profit participation agreement without it being a full blown collaboration partnership, right? I hope you're thinking about this seriously because the next part is really about how to start these conversations without making them weird and adversarial. Creators often say, I don't want to scare anyone off by bringing up legal stuff or using contracts. Well, listen, if a conversation about the structure of a business relationship scares people off, then they weren't going to make a very good collaborator or team member anyway. Clear expectations protect these relationships. They set up the guardrails, they set up the boundaries, and everybody has good expectations of what's to come. So if you're planning a collaboration or you're already in one that feels a little wobbly, you are not alone and you're in the right place. You can join our free Legit Podcast Pro community. That's legitpodcastpro.com. And you can also get on my wait list for my next legal protection workshop for podcasters. Go to podcastlaw.net. And that's it for this episode. I'm Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer. I want to say thank you for watching. I will see you again next time. And in the meantime, keep on producing, keep on making great stuff, keep on podcasting, and stay legit. Have a great one.